A very good morning to you and welcome to Sporty Monday. It's been an incredible week if you're a Kenyan. We have so much to talk about today, from rugby to football to basketball and of course Formula One. I have to throw that in there. Today I'm joined by two gentlemen who know and love their sports. Shitera, karibu sana.
Asante sana and welcome back, Mukami.
Thank you. It's good to be back. Especially when I know we're going to talk about female sports.
Yes,
Sila,
that one we will.
Karibu sana.
Pleasure as well.
Yeah, you did a really good job holding fort.
Asante sana.
Yeah, tunashukuru. Arocho is not here with us today, but we'll still get into everything that happened this past weekend, starting, of course, with the ladies' basketball team. Swila, I feel this is one of those results that no one expected. And even with the men's basketball, Kenyans were not expecting much from them. It's after they've won that all the accolades are coming in. And, you know, to come back twice after losing so close to Egypt in the group stages to beat them in the final, what do you just think about that result?
First of all, kongole kwa kikosi kizima. It took everybody by surprise, and myself too. Credit goes to Coach Opel. Opel actually is also the assistant coach of the KPA men's team. And so he understands the basketball terrain so well. He's been nurturing players, and he knows what it takes to win. Because, again, KPA is one of the dominant forces in the local basketball scene. Having said that, I think Opel must have made some big rallying call in Kigali, at the Kigali Arena, because, as you say, at the group stages, they didn't do so very well. They blew hot and cold. But when it mattered, actually, they went for the kill. They got the ticket. We are going to Cameroon in September. And again, another platform to shine. Remember what Morans, the male counterpart, did not long ago. So for me, this is actually a very good moment for us as a nation, as for a sporting nation. But now, going forward now, Opel and the leadership at the Basketball Federation must now really do proper preparations ahead of that championship. It's going to be tougher because in the Zone 5 qualifiers, as you saw, they nearly lost it. But again, they rose to the challenge when it was most needed. But now, having said that again, a lot of work to be done. And what took me by surprise, Mukami, is look at the local league. It has been in disarray, in total chaos in the recent past. You look at the teams, how they're performing. KP has been dominant, Equity trying, but the disorganization therein. But they defied all that to post that majestic performance. It is very incredible.
Shitera, for the first time, I think in history, we'll have both the men and the women's team playing in the Afrobaskets. What does that say about basketball in general and how much we should now start investing in a sport that we're actually beginning to do really well in?
I think it is the happiest moment to be a Kenyan because we are looking at things positively in terms of sports. It takes me back when I was a young boy, 2004, 2002, 3, 4, 5 there, when the league was really active, and like Swila has alluded, the league was very active, but nationally we were not as much. But now things are changing. Basketball reminds me of the cooperative KPA when there was a very tight competition in the league. But now the league is deteriorating, but nationally our boys and girls, or men and women, are doing us proud. And I think we are getting some shift, a sport that we really did not focus on. They are showing us that there is something in it. We really focus so much on football and forgot other sports. But I think as Kenyans, we have something to celebrate. We can shift away from football and have our concentration on volleyball, have our concentration on basketball, have our concentration on athletics. And I believe this is a good thing that we are seeing the Morans and the Lionesses representing us at the Afrobasket. I think it's a good thing to be alive on. Kenya started on a low. Yes, they lost to Rwanda in group stages. They lost by 1 basket. But again, they picked themselves up and rose to the occasion. And look, we are at the top of the mountain, as I can put it, because They've won it, and they are going to represent Kenya at the Afrobasket. And I believe the same spirit the Morans have, because the Morans shocked so many people, including the president himself, you remember. So the girls have also done it, and I believe going by what I'm seeing, we're going to leave a mark at the continental level.
Yeah. And Swila, I know in a lot of sports, Kenya usually has that mentality of bottling things up once they lose momentum. Especially, I know in football, the Harambee Stars, once they go down, it's down and out. But what can you say about the Lionesses this time? Because as he mentioned, they lost to Rwanda, they lost to Egypt narrowly, and they beat South Sudan. But like, because losing the psychological, losing 106 to 107, and then knowing this is the same team you're facing in the finals. Absolutely.
Actually, they just won one game in the group stage, as you said, against South Sudan. But now again, you can see in the semis how fierce they came into that battle. You watch it, you could see the determination, the hunger. They wanted it more. The marking was very tight, defensive was very tight, and even the transition in all those quarters was incredible. So for me, I'll give that credit to Coach Opel, basically, because I think he must have had an honest discussion with the team after the group stages, and the results were there to show.
And now, do you think the 106, 107 fueled them up?
Absolutely, because it was so close. Everybody was following that game, of course, the sports enthusiasts, and there was that feeling, Kenya can nick this, but we lost it right at the death. And I think that was actually a motivating factor. Now that we're in the semis, can we go and make amends for that? And they did that for the country. Incredible stuff. But now, we can't let the Kenya Basketball Federation boss, Paul Otula, go without reminding him. It's a big shame that while Morans are doing so well, Lionesses are doing so well, the league is in disarray. Fixture communication. It's a weekend, teams don't know whether I'm going to feature. This kind of mess, actually, Otula has to address it. Because in this era and age of technological advancement, when we're making a lot of grounds in our sport development, right now there's no Mukami, a place where you can go and even pinpoint in 2 weeks' time, KPA will play this fixture at this particular venue. In this era and age, it's a big shame. You can't have league organizers calling team managers or club officials, tomorrow you'll be playing at Nyayo at the 11th hour, when our teams are doing so well at the national level. So the success of Lionesses and Morans must trickle down, not just in the league, but we also want to see feeder programs initiated by the federation. We want to see equity, we want to see KPA, and all these other clubs such as Emiba and even the clubs in Kisumu have development sites where we can nurture talent and in future play at the national team. As we've said with football, even basketball is a game changer. Who says you must just play football to make it in life? We can have our own stars coming from our shoes and going to play for the major leagues in the world. And that also translates to a stronger and better national team. As we've seen in the Morans, you saw all the big boys coming from Algeria and Europe and what have you. We want to see the same with Lionesses, but it must begin from the officials who lead the sport. We can't take again mediocrity going forward. Otula and his team must actually clean their house, and we must have a well-run league that can attract sponsors, can give returns to our players, and there's no short way about this.
Chitara, do you think would Otula use these results to show how well basketball is progressing, or is it actually shining a light on some of the inefficiencies that are in the sport? How do you see him viewing the results?
But I think it's taking him too long, because the Morans would have been a wake-up call that we have talent in Kenya. He slept so much. The girls have done it. So I think it would be funny for him not to realize this, because we all see. And I remember the times that Nyayo Stadium over the weekends, you would think AFC Leopards is playing Gor Mahia, only to realize that it's a basketball fixture going on at the Nyayo National Stadium Gymnasium. I usually attended those games, and it was really captivating. Look at the crowd that was at Nyayo during the Morans and the South Sudanese,
the qualifiers,
the qualifiers, you realize that really Kenyans are really looking for a game that will uplift their sporting spirits. Apart from football, we really need to have an option. So Otula really needs to put his house in order, because at the national level, if we don't feed these teams, we will face a deficiency in the near future, because that is where we get our crop of players. Yeah. And if we don't have the players at the national level, we will shine only for a matter of time, then we'll fizzle out.
And I think also, Swila, I think the onus is also on media to start shining a light on these players, because we focus so much on football, but we don't focus as much on basketball. And they're being successful, because the Morans, I remember one of the things that they were saying is what they want is support. They want support from Kenyans. They want people to cheer them on. They want us to make noise the way we make noise about the Safari Rally. So when we're going to Kigali, they want that support, especially now that they've done the hard bit to qualify, and even without that support. So I'm just wondering, how much better can they perform if we all get behind them?
The media must make noise, I agree with you. We need to give them lots of airtime, lot of coverage, lot of analysis, and even engage the policymakers as far as the team is concerned. As he said, you see, Otula just came, he earned a new mandate not long ago, a matter of months, beating the other lady. And Otula, having been in the game for so long, he understands basketball better, because he's a coach, as a principal of Maseno High School. Maseno was actually unbeatable as far as the game is concerned. So he understands his stuff. So we just call upon him to clean the house, and we won't tire reminding him this every single day. And even as we talk about basketball again, the state of hockey is very dire, as I pointed out. This is the only federation of the sport that has not had the league run since March last year at the onset of the pandemic. And that's not acceptable up to now. You look again at the facility that we have in Parkland. It is in deplorable condition. No effort whatsoever to have rugby pitches across the country. So again, Nahashon Randiek has his work cut out. Those players depend on the sport for a living. They are professionals. So it's upon the federation to show leadership. But where they can't, I think, you feel it's too much, step aside, get somebody who can do the job and drive the agenda forward.
And Chitara, finally, a lot of even the Moran players, what they do is they can't just play basketball. Most of them have actual jobs that they go to, and basketball is a hobby. How can we encourage it so that we grow the sport to a level where they just will only need to focus on basketball and let go of those other jobs? Again,
you realize that just like football, most of the basketball teams in the league are corporate teams, KPA, Equity. We don't have those community clubs that will say that we will professionalize the sport. So most of those players, you will realize that they work for those companies and then play basketball as a part-time activity, or play as a, I would call it ni kama tu exercise. Yeah, si kitu tunatilia ni kama a profession. So we are not also again treating it as a profession in as much as tumefika to that level ya to represent the country kwa Afrobasket. So again, it's a wake-up call to the management. Again, it's a wake-up call to the government that we really need to initiate programs that will cultivate a culture of bringing up the sport as a profession. Most of the people who are doing it as a part-time job, apart from football, whereby the professional players, you see how they are languishing in Kenya locally. So I believe we can make it professional, but again, we need resources. That is why corporates are shining, even in football. Tusker and KCB are competing for the KPL medal. So we really need to change our perspective. We really need to change our minds in as far as sports in Kenya is concerned. Look at the international scenes in the UK. Football is well-paying. Community clubs are thriving. Look at basketball in the USA, the same thing. So we really need to borrow that culture and try and be open in our management. That is the biggest problem, because you will tell me that FC Leopards will lack funds if there is proper management and accountability. But when I'm in charge of FC Leopards, I will start by planning how much will get into my pocket before I know how much will get into the players' pockets. That is the biggest problems, the biggest problem in Kenya.
FC Leopards. You said FC Leopards.
I've just given FC Leopards as an example.
Subject.
And remember, this thing cuts across. It's a Kenyan culture. It cuts across politics. It cuts across sports. Any business you do, someone will ask you, what do you have for me? Okay. It's a culture. So unless we shift from that culture, I believe we will really have a rough time to professionalize the sports, as you're saying.
Yeah. So the Afrobaskets is in Kigali, Rwanda from the 24th of August to the 5th of September. We'll be rooting for the Kenya Morans in that. And now we want to move on to the Olympics. It's on Friday. We finally reached, after a whole year of it being postponed, and to just kick things off with us, Mike Okini is in Japan. Mike, can you hear us? Okay. Okay, as we try and get Mike, we can just proceed with the conversation. We'll speak to him. I think with the Olympics so close by, Swila, what do you think of our preparations this time in terms of Team Kenya? You know, a lot of the athletes are in Kurume and they've started now making their way to Tokyo. How have you seen it this year around?
No, without a shadow of doubt, we've had a very good preps, and we even talked at length about it last week. But what took my interest was last night's report by Okini, and you could see our Lionesses, that's the female team, the rugby female team, could not actually have a session because of the stringent COVID-19 protocols in Japan. And you could even see with Okini himself and even the journalists there, it's become so difficult. Before you move to even a venue to go cover training, you must inform the authorities, this is where I will be, seek approval, and all those apps that he was showing us, all those paperwork you have to fill. So this is going to be an Olympic that is extraordinary, under extraordinary circumstances. Under normal circumstances, actually, this competition would have been cancelled. But IOC were very adamant this has to go on. The Japanese government also put their foot down. But the public opinion in Japan thinks otherwise. These games should have been cancelled. But now we are here. The wait has been so long and it's now proceeding. You've asked about preparations. I think it has been tremendous for a long time. Scandal-free. Players and athletes have been in bubble camp right here at Kasarani. Some of them trained outside. They've traveled to Karume early enough just to acclimatize, settle there, get a feeling. And I think up to that point in time, we've scored excellently, very well. Now, can we translate this now to success on the pitches, on the track and the courts? That's another question altogether. But we're gonna know when action actually gets underway on 23rd. That's a few days from now. And I'm confidently, very bullish, rather, that for the first time, we can surpass the 15 medal mark. Remember in the last outing in Rio, we had 13 medals, but I think we can take it higher this time around. If you look at team sports, I think Lionesses have a fighting chance. I think Shujaa have got a fighting chance. I look at our boxers, Christine Ongare, I think she has got a fighting chance. So to wrap it up, I think preparations has been exemplary. Credit to the government, credit to Amina Mohammed, Paul Tergat at NOC with this entire contingent, the Acting Secretary General Paul Mutuku, and everybody involved in this have been very incredible. Now, we can only hope that the COVID-19 pandemic does not strike maybe one of our athletes or our players, and that we can go there, reinforce our credentials as a sporting nation, and do very well.
Yeah. And Chitara, even as he's mentioned COVID-19, the fact that we haven't heard, at least, of any athlete actually getting it because of the way they've done those bubble camps and how they've traveled to Japan, and like they've done a really good job this time.
They have done a very good job. The government has also chipped in, and as we discussed, all the players have been vaccinated. And I think COVID has really leveled the playing field for everyone, because there's no one who holds an advantage over the other one. It boils down to your creativity.
Sorry to cut you short, Chitara. I hear we have Mike on the line. Mike, can you hear us? Okay. Mike, you can just tell us what's happening in Japan. Okay, I think we'll try and get him.
Like you've said, I've been listening to the conversation between you and Swila, and the stringent measures that have been put in place in terms of COVID protocols are what will put a damper on this Olympics. But it is one of those things that has to be done. It has to be done, and it has to be done properly. Now, if you look at the protocols that have been put in place, you have to sign that you'll abide by these rules that have been put in place. And if you abide by the rules, then it means that quarantine is a must. Getting to do the tests on a daily basis is a must. So there are a lot of things that are happening at the village, and we were hoping, crossing our fingers, that it doesn't happen this soon, but we have COVID cases in the village already. We've got people testing positive from the airports already. And the fate of our Malkia strikers, half the team, it's not their fault. It's none of their fault. Somebody tested positive in the flight they were coming in with. And that means that the protocols have said that if you are in a flight with somebody who is COVID positive, then it means you're a close contact. They have to monitor you for what they call the hard quarantine period, which is the first 3 days, then soft quarantine, which could be anything between 3 and 10 days. So it's going to be very, very difficult for some of these teams. When he spoke to Innocent Simiyu 4 days ago, that's the Shujaa coach rugby team, he pointed out that you are not sure who will be in competition. On the day that you're going to play, you're not sure if you will have a team yourself or if the opponent will show up, basically. And he posed a very good question and said, suppose on the first day of competition, only 4 teams can raise a team because of this pandemic. Then what happens? So those are things that we have to be alive to. Team Kenya has arrived in camp. The first batch of players have arrived in Tokyo from Kurume, and that's the Malkia Strikers, the volleyball team. They have checked into the athletes' village this morning. Actually, here it's afternoon. It's 33 minutes past 2 o'clock. They've checked into the village, as well as the beach volleyballers and the taekwondo athletes, that is Faith Ogalo. All those ones are in camp already. The people that we are waiting for today are the boxers, because they are on their way to Tokyo. So from tomorrow we should be able to see these particular players in training, and then give us a gist of what is happening in the athletes village. The measures were stringent, we know, but there's still that issue of sharing of rooms, that 2 players per room as per the rules. But now with the COVID cases coming up, then there's talk of, do we need to split the players, that everybody goes into their own room? And it's not just the players who are being affected, officials are being affected, both team officials and National Olympic Committee officials from other countries. So it's going to be a very, very, very tight Olympic, where we are staying now. You can see it's 2:30 and I've not left my room yet. I'm still waiting for my approval to move, which I got just now. I can go to the MPC, what we call the MPC, the main press center. So from the main press center now, we'll be able to know what is going on. It's the first time that I'm actually going to the main press center. I'm getting an approval to go there. So from there is where you get your direction as media. From this hotel itself, I'm with I think 25 other journalists from different countries, and we use a different entrance into the hotel, not the main entrance that every other guest is using. Everybody on the Olympics, and you're a foreigner, we use what we call the service entrance, so to speak. The lift is different, the entrance is different, you're using a different side. So even at the restaurant, you've got your own side that you have to stick with. One is to protect us, because they know we've done all the COVID tests and you're negative and all that. 2 is so that you don't interact with the rest of the Japanese group. And this is just for 14 days. After 14 days, you are in this country. Then you're free to move and go to any other place. But the first 14 days, because they have to be sure absolute sure that you are COVID free, it means 14 days you cannot interact with anybody else except people in the Olympic bubble, so to speak. So we're operating in a bubble, and that bubble will be in operation for 14 days. Everyone has their own 14 days. Once you clear your 14 days, then you're able to move. So I believe by the time we speak again next Monday, on Sporty Monday, we'll have a lot of stuff to update on. But just keep it here. We'll keep on updating on what is happening in Team Kenya especially. We are grateful that no positive cases so far. Touch wood, it doesn't happen, because one case, you can see how it disrupts everything else. South Africa are in problems because 3 of their players from the football team have tested positive. Their rugby team is in quarantine, so it means the whole football team, the whole rugby team quarantine. And this one, they're using Japan laws of COVID. It's not Olympics anymore. It is the laws of the country. If they say 14 days, if they land within your competition days, then we are sorry. If you're supposed to be playing yesterday and it's day 13 of quarantine, you'll still have to be in quarantine. Those are the conversations that are going on with IOC, and we'll be able to find more updates once we get to the main press center, because that's the center of everything else. All information is coming there. We need to know how we move from there. So within the next 2 days, then we'll know if life becomes easier or it becomes more difficult here. I know the only person who can enjoy life here is Swila, because he loves pork. Swila and Kianda from Hot 96, those are people who love pork. So pork is a delicacy here. You got pork choma, pork boil, pork everything else. So they would enjoy so much here. So us and our pork meals, I think we'll give you an update on Sporty Monday next week. Let's have a long conversation. Then I'll be able to give you the insights of everything else that is happening here in Tokyo.
Mike, before you leave, you've explained so many complicated processes. What I want to know from you is, do you personally think that these games should have gone on, or should they have just been cancelled?
Let me try and see the message.
Do you think the games should have been cancelled?
No, Mukami. Games will not be cancelled. It's more expensive to cancel the games than to hold them, because the investment that has gone in, the sponsorship that has gone into these games, I mean, it means that if you cancel them, you have to give back to all these sponsors, number one, and then it becomes also expensive on the host countries, because you're left with white elephants. What do you do with all these facilities that you've created? Some of them have been there before. It's just they've been touched up a little bit, but then, like any other major championship, there are those new infrastructures that have been put there. Developments have been put for the games specifically. So you don't want to waste all that. That cannot be cancelled. That's why even if a section of the Japanese don't feel like this Olympics should go on, I mean, by all means, they have decided we are here, they will go on. Even if it means extending it by a few days because of COVID protocols and all that, then that will be the case. But for now, it's going on.
Mike, final question. Now that you're actually in Japan, and we've heard that so many Japanese people have had an issue with the Olympics from the get-go, can you get that sense there? Like when you're interacting with some of the people in Japan, do you feel that feeling of being unwanted?
Question. Shemu, if you can repeat what Mukami is asking, I'll be able to answer properly.
Whether you feel that there's a lot of tension from the Japanese people.
Whether I feel there's a lot of what?
Tension.
Tension from the Japanese people. No. They're not, how do I put it? Japanese people are very accommodative, so to speak. If you look at, for example, what they did with Team Kenya in Kurume. When Team Kenya arrived in Kurume, they made sure that what would Kenyans love? What would they want? Number one, there's that transition from home into Japan. So mix the two cultures. And what do you mix in those terms? You have to look at the language, you have to look at the food, and how Kenyan people do their thing. So one of the things they did, they made sure that the cook who is preparing the food for the Kenyan delegation understands the Kenyan delicacy. So there's ugali, there's chai, there's chapati. They learned all those, how to make all those. So that is the kind of transition that is there. And even in Kurume, they asked that, can we at least attend a few of these sessions? We see the people we are hosting. And they were able to attend the training sessions for Lionesses, for Shuja, for the volleyball team, Malkia Strikers, who are very popular here, by the way. They're the darling of the Kurume people, because they know that Kenya is playing Japan in the first game on Sunday. And as much as they want their team to win, they also feel like Kenya is part of them in Kurume. So they'll be cheering on two teams when they meet on the first day of competition, that is on Sunday. So Japanese people are very accommodative. They are very kind. They are very understanding. Right? They get to know, they know what we are going through. Even when you're in quarantine, like my case, the first day that I was in quarantine for 30 hours before I got any food or water, and I communicated with Wangoi Kibe, who's the CEO of Team Kenya here, and together with the Embassy of Kenya in Japan, they were able to communicate, and they brought me food. They're actually the people who brought me food, and they're very understanding. They're like, yeah, we know it's quarantine, but I mean, you've tested negative, it doesn't mean that you can't eat. We'll just sort out the issues to do with you can't leave your room and you can't have room service, so we have to meet in between and know what happened. So that's how we got the rule of 15 minutes out. You can go get your food, stretch out, walk a little bit, then you're back. So 15 minutes was added to that window of hard quarantine for the people who came after me in terms of hard quarantine, because we were among the first ones to arrive in Japan. And that was good, because you can imagine if you arrive a few days to the games and then you meet all these stringent measures that have been put in place, it becomes very difficult. But Japanese people, one of the best you'll ever meet, even if the language barrier is there, which is a big issue, language, but they have discovered all these apps that do translations. So those translations are the things that we are working with. And you work with your phone with a translator there. You just speak into your phone and it translates. And they speak back and it translates back to you in English. So life is that simple now. Technology is helping us survive.
Thank you very much for that, Mike. I'm hoping the next time we talk to you, this time next week, it'll be to celebrate a Shujaa win over the hosts, Japan. I think Mike has covered everything. He's been very comprehensive in terms of everything that's happening in the Olympics, how the processes are working. So I'd like us to move on to the KPL, because we don't have that much time. And I want to start off with Sula, because Gor Mahia. Everyone was saying they're on the up and up, they're about to win the league again, and then it's all come crashing down. 5 games, no wins.
I think, yeah, it's basically gone. I don't think they're going to recover at this point in time to win that title. Probably, I think maybe Tusker claiming the ticket to CAF had a psychological effect on that team. Then add on to the financial squabbles they've had, then I don't really think right now they have the momentum or the gas to challenge Tusker. Matano seems very determined to go all the way, and having claimed the CAF ticket, the icing on the cake for him would be to win the league title. If he fails to do that, there are going to be debates which would stretch over to even next season, and being Kenyans, and what we've seen as far as football leadership is concerned, you won't be surprised to see somebody file for litigation if they fail to win the title. So Matano knows that pretty well, and I think he's not going to let the title slip, because if he wins it, there'll be no case whatsoever that unfairness, FKF did A, B, C, D, all that. Again, Gor Mahia, as you've talked, there are times they went 7 matches, winning streak, but that again now, as you said, they've lost the momentum. But going forward again, look at the weekend, how it shaped out. The Brewers, they beat Leopards by 2 goals to no reply. So I think Matano has mastered the art of beating Ingwe. And again, for Ingwe, I think they're just flower girls.
Yeah, at the beginning, I think we can even have those results. Yeah, we can. Yeah,
they are there on the screen. Look, Sofapaka being held there to a 1-1 draw. Of course, Nzoia have had a very bad campaign. Kariobangi Sharks, if you took notice, right now they're in the top 5. Kakamega Homeboys, top 8. They also had a very, very poor campaign. At one point, there are concerns Nicholas Muyoti would part ways with the team. Go over to Lindsay Stars again. a win against Western Stima. Western Stima is one of the teams that's struggling alongside Vihiga United and Mathare United. If you look at the table, they're right at the bottom end there. And probably at the end of this season, we could see Mathare's United dominance and long stay in the KPL probably coming to an end. They're really, really struggling. Now, the take home from, for me from the weekend fixtures is Posta Rangers' poor run, Homeboys' improvement on the table, and most remarkably, Tusker beating Leopards 2-0. Tusker have been beating Leopards actually at will. If you look at the stats for the last 10 years, it doesn't make for a very good reading for the Leopards fans. Remember the beginning of the season, their head coach and even Dan Shikanda, the club boss, and even Leopards fans, we have one of them in the newsroom by the name Godfrey Ashale. He was very upbeat that this is the season that Ingwe gonna end over 2 decades wait for the title. But as we've seen, they're just flaggers in this campaign.
Yeah. Shitara, do you feel for Ingwe specifically, one of the things that hindered them was the fact that they didn't have a big squad? Because if you look at the game against Tusker, close to 12 players were missing. That's almost the entire team. Some of them have traveled with the under-23s for the Sakafa Championships. So could that have been one of the main reasons where this time AFC floundered, because they just didn't have the muscle?
That's not an excuse, because I think the previous match they lost, they have lost like, as we speak, they have lost like 3 games with the same players we are talking about. And to me, I would rather celebrate Okumu coming close to winning the Champions League with Kaizer Chiefs. They lost against Al Ahly 3-0, but that is a remarkable show. Because Gor Mahia have always preached that they have nothing to show in Kenya. They have won the Premier League, I think, since 2013 to last year. But what have they shown us at the continental level? They are winning 0. So to me, I don't celebrate any of this team. Maybe Tusker. Next season, let's wait and see what they will do. They have the money, they have a good coach, they have good players. Let's see how they will represent Kenya at CAF, because it is a field that has been dominated by North Africans. Gor Mahia came close to breaking that culture, but logistically, in terms of preparations, I think the management of Gor Mahia failed us. And it is at that time that I said Gor Mahia management should have resigned, because they failed Kenyans. At that moment, Gor Mahia was representing Kenya. So I think that is the point. The leadership should have resigned and paved way to new and creative ideas in football. At FC Leopards, I tell you it's an excuse, because Dan Shikanda really, borrowing Swila's words, was bullish that he gonna win the trophy last season, not even this season. But last season went, this season has gone. He has nothing to show FC Leopards fans. So I'm waiting for him to hear what he will tell FC Leopards fans, because he really did, basically the management at FC Leopards did a very wrong thing by sacking Anthony Kimani. I still stick on that, because look at the situation now. They are struggling with finances. Gor Mahia is struggling with finances. But would you say that nitaenda kwa butchery nione kama nitapata nyama, ama will you cook the vegetable that is close to you? You see, that is a scenario that FC Leopards is in. You are staying in a butchery thinking that you will have a bite of the meat, and yet you don't have the money to even afford a quarter of it. So why don't you go back home, uchune the vegetables that are free in the garden, cook, na ukule ugali. So it's a challenge to the leadership. Let us have accountability. Let us be responsible for our clubs. You are holding those clubs on behalf of the fans. They are not your clubs.
And by the way, talking of leadership and accountability, look at the development at City Stars. Alajic, that's the Bosnian coach, left just this ended week. And this is a coach, actually we have graphics that you can run them on the screen. Alagic joined the team when they were in the National Super League. So if there's a white or a foreign coach we need to celebrate for having made an impact in the Kenyan game, then it has, look at the Bosnian, yeah? He came when the team was in the NSL, as I said, in 2018. Then he drove the team to the top tier division, which is KPL. His record is sparkling. Look at 33 wins. The draws are 11, and of course losses are 10. So that's incredible. As we are speaking, actually, City Stars, a team that were perennially relegation candidates, are in position 7. That's just tremendous. Another thing we need to pick from City Stars' story, Jonathan Neva bought this club from Peter Jaboya. I look at the structures he's put in the team, the professionalizing of the club, how the club is run. There's a CEO, there's a technical bench, there's a head coach, and that transition, working in tranquility with the playing unit and the administration to realize success. It's unfortunate he's left at this point in time, because I would have wished to see him take the team through the campaign and see how far they could have gone, because at position 7 right now, they could have easily nailed a 3rd position place if they continued the winning momentum. Then the blend of the old guards, John Amboko right now, who has taken over as a head coach in Alagic's exit, is like a club legend there. He's played there for so long. He's been team captain, assistant coach. Now he's been confirmed to head that team. Now, this is a big challenge to Amboko, and all eyes will be on him to see if he can maintain the momentum that Alagic had put there. If he fails to do that, I'm sorry, at the end of the term, we could see Jonathan Neva and CEO Korir going to the market to get a new coach. Yeah. So he's always rooted for homegrown coaches. This is a chance for Amboko, who is a former player, to actually show I'm able and can do this job. Very
quickly, he's left for home. Maybe you can give the people who are watching at home like why he's leaving. Actually,
he wrote a very lengthy, heartfelt letter to the playing unit and even the management. And his argument was because of COVID-19, which has disrupted our lives, he's not been able to visit his family as often as he would love. His family has not been here with him. His contract has actually expired. The last 3 games he took over was actually just out of goodwill rather, but the contract has expired. But from what he said, he was not really willing to extend his engagement because of COVID-19 situation and staying away from his family, which I think, in my view, is a big, big blow to that team.
Shitara, a foreign coach came and he conquered and he helped a team that I remember have always been struggling. They keep falling to the bottom league, they keep coming up, they keep falling, and now they seem to have gotten some semblance of normalcy.
Look at the structures he has talked about. At City Stars, in as much as it's not that big celebrated team, they have proper structures. They are teaching teams that have a big following that you can manage your football in a fashionable way. Yeah, so that when you make a decision, actually, it is the first club that I hear a coach has finished his contract, has run out his contract. It's rare in football, and more so in Kenyan football. And you can clearly see the transition that he's leaving the position to his assistant coach, who has been confirmed. Yeah, at FC Leopards, the assistant coach plays an acting capacity on different occasions. So in as much as a coach has not been given confirmation and is bringing in results, that is a coach who needs to be confirmed. But again, Kenyan football is Kenyan football. Kenyan management in football is Kenyan management. And that is what I'm saying. We really need to change that attitude. I have good examples of local coaches who have performed. We have Jacob Ghost-Mulee. We have Francis Kimanzi.
And Matano.
We have Robert Matano. Yeah? We have Nandwa. Nandwa has won a Sekafa. We have Harry, who has taken us to AFCON. So we can do it. Why are we still clinging on to foreign help when we got independence 58 years ago? Don't we believe in our own minds? Don't we believe in our own creativity? I think it is time that when you don't have a good coach locally, then you can move and look for a coach somewhere else. But when you have a good coach, and a good coach in this case, I mean a coach who is winning you games, Why do you sideline him? That is a point that our Kenyan management in football should really take seriously. But because of other things that we are interested in, I would rather see a club...
Kenyan culture, you call
the
it
Kenyan culture, yeah. I would rather
Culture.
see a club falling at the expense of my...
Definitely.
I think we can move on to the Kenya Cup. Just a review of the results that happened this weekend. We have Kenya Harlequins. They beat Nondescripts 5-18. No, Nondescripts beat Kenya Harlequins 18-5. Strathmore beat Black Blood 25-10. Then we have Top
the
Fry,
results,
Nakuru and Kabra Sugar. They completely hammered them in Nakuru 40-15. Then Masinde Muliro 21 to Impala 12. And I think the game of the weekend was Menengai Oilers versus KCB 22-19.
Very
and
tight.
It was a last-minute penalty. The clips, someone can just run them there. It was one of those exciting games. And I think at the end of the game, Katius Olago, the coach for KCB, he was just saying, like both teams played the best rugby. Like he couldn't even fault Masinde Muliro for, Menengai Oilers for how they played, because it was top quality and to push the team that's at the top of the league.
And perennial champions.
Yeah, to that, and to come back from behind, because it was 19-12 at halftime. It was quite something, Swila.
Yeah, I think for me the beauty is now we are having this, the third weekend in a row we are having Kenya Cup. And as you've said, this was actually the cracking game of the weekend. KCB have been so dominant over the seasons, and probably again, if you look at the log, they could claim the gong this time. I don't know how close Cabras can actually go and nail it, but I think KCB are still the overwhelming favorites. Again, you look at consistency and continuity in that technical bench. Curtis Olaga has been there for quite some time, so he understands the players' strengths and weaknesses. Game management is very good. Then again, look at the young players coming through the ranks. That's a plus for KCB. So all these teams, actually, if they want to break that, there's no shortcut. They have to borrow that. Lastly, again, the stability I've talked about in terms of finances. And remember, KCB actually is one of the corporates that has really invested massively in sports. You look at motorsport, they're there. You come to rugby, they're there. You come to football, KCB FC, there.
Volleyball.
You go to volleyball, they're there. So
Basketball.
actually, so it's a big shame, actually. The other corporates need to borrow what they've done and actually pump some money into sport. And for KCB, it's a win-win, because every time we are talking about KCB, they get a lot of mileage out of this, by the way. On the pitch, I think it was a good game. Let's see how it pans out in the coming days. But still, I'll put my money on KCB to bag yet another goal.
Okay, it's almost time, and you guys know what that means. You know, I'm updating. It's time for me to update you on what is happening in the world of motorsport.
Go ahead.
The Formula One Grand Prix. It was Silverstone, the British Grand Prix yesterday, and that is Sir Lewis Hamilton's home race. We can just have the clips running as I give.
Where's my man?
Who?
Verstappen.
Wait and see what happened to Verstappen in the first lap. You can see it was quite tight. Verstappen had a massive lead in terms of the championship, and there you go. He crashed out. Lewis Hamilton actually got a 10-second penalty for that crash. They said that he's the one who caused the crash. So you can imagine 0 points for Verstappen. And Lewis Hamilton went on to serve his penalty and come back from the bottom to beat Charles Leclerc in maybe the last 2 laps. So he actually ended up winning the British Grand Prix, which is his home Grand Prix. And it showed the fight that he has in this. Like, he's not going to let Verstappen win it easily. If he's going to win, he's going to have a fight. And yeah, now the championship lead has been cut to 7 points, which means your guy Max is still on top. So going into the next Grand Prix, I think it's just been an incredible race. I was watching it with a lot of Formula One fans, and the excitement, that first lap, I don't think there's been a better start to a Formula One race that I've watched in the last maybe 3-4 years than yesterday, because they were at it neck to neck for like the first 5-6 corners, because in Formula One, the first lap is everything. Anyone who missed it yesterday is kicking themselves. But it was a really good race. The championship battle is now on. So yeah, I'll keep you updated again. The next Grand Prix, the 30th.
I think I'll be following very, very closely.
By the end of this time, you guys will be watching races with me.
Actually, I've been watching, but not so keen. I'll start watching and very critically keen on it.
And
yeah,
Arsenal signing Ben White.
Yeah, I don't. Which team is that?
Ben White from Brighton.
I think
yes.
Time has
They were saying that a 50 million bid has been accepted. Remember, at first they tabled 40, which was rejected. And Mikel
is that a good signing for you?
I
for
think
Arsenal?
he is, but my concern, look at even the pre-season, it's been disjointed. It's the same old Mikel Arteta. Look at the small teams he's drawing and losing against. So I don't think there's much really hope.
But your guy
season.
had put 250 million on the table for signing. Why are you going for the low-key players?
No, Ben White, I think, is a good player.
No, he's a good player at that level.
You know, for me, if you can't start for your national team, how good of a player?
But again,
that's why I'm saying he's a good player at that level. Look at the level Arsenal is going to pick players. Brighton.
No, for me, I'd stick the player, but to me, it's just one constant because that defense, if you look at it, it means probably still doesn't have faith in Gabriel, Pablo Mari, and who's the other centre back? Probably.
Yes, we need to end it there. I'm sure next week, I promise you guys, we'll get a little bit more time talking about the EPL and the signings, especially now that the new season is about to begin. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on Sporty Monday. We will be back next week. Arocho will hopefully be back next week as well. Thank you guys once again. My name is Joyce Mukami Wambora. I have just revealed my government name. Have a good day.